Hey guys, welcome back to JitsChats, Jiu-Jitsu Uncle here. This episode is actually, it's going to be short, right? Because it's more of a spur of the moment thing. It's nothing serious. And it's such an old topic that I never bothered to talk about or even research or even think about until I was just binge scrolling YouTube, and all these recos about the topic came out, and I just want to talk a little bit about it from a contrarian point of view as usual, because I don't really give a shit about the topic, but it's interesting enough to make content out of it. So amuse me for a little. I'll promise to keep this one short, like 5 minutes tops. So the topic is about the black belt of Derek Moneyberg, right? So we all have seen all the discussion about that. It's pretty much centered around that these black belts sell out, giving him the belt, validating what the black belt that is achieving 3.5 or whatever years. I don't know. It's so let's get something straight first. One, obviously, as a practitioner, we all kind of know it's a little ridiculous from what we have seen so far from a skills perspective, right? And but whether there's money involved or not, we don't know. The guy is shady as hell. He works in an industry where there are almost no legitly moral person. Let me put it that way. So let's just leave it at that. I'm not here to blatantly attack the person. I don't know him. I don't care as well. B, the angle of whether or not these legends, these name black belts, instructors sell out in endorsing him, giving him the belt itself, etc. Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, this is where I want to chime in. One, I think this kind of topic became such a big deal. At least, I don't know if it's still a big deal now, like 3 months after it happened, 2, 3 months after it happened. But I think it kind of stemmed from a couple of things. One, in BJJ, specifically BJJ, because it is a BJJ belt, not a submission grappling rank or anything, is that outside of the IBJJF standardized quote-unquote requirement system, wherein you have to stay in the belt for a certain time frame before you can get promoted, unless you win a Worlds or a title of some sort within the IBJJF quote-unquote majors tournaments, you cannot speed run through things, right? I think that's one of the things that makes this belt a little funny, because it almost like makes other traditional martial art belts that give out black belts easily, especially to kids and elderlies and whatever, within a matter of a couple of years, seem more legit than the BJJ, because at least in those kind of stuff, there is a rank that you have to go through. There is a minimum attendance at the very least that you have to go through, and you have to be able to complete certain criteria in terms of a curriculum, whether it's punches, kick it, stance, katas, whatever it might be. You have to complete all of those. If you can speed run through it, who's to say that that's not legit, right? Because again, it's a martial art. You're not being gauged whether or not you can fight. You're not being gauged whether you can win medals or protect yourself in a hostile situation. In BJJ, it's a little different, because we pride ourselves with BJJ being one of the most practical and realistic martial arts out there, because of the active resistance and the active training, competition type of training, even for casuals. But because we don't have that standard, especially most of the gyms, I would guess, that are not under the big traditional brands like the Razy Bajas and what else is there? Again, I don't follow brands that much, but AOJ, whatever, like Atos, etc. There's no like lineage concern as much, especially with a lot of the no-gi schools, a lot of the no-gi academies. So without that in mind, what is the criteria for promoting people? Is it just time? If it's just time, then the claim that Moneyberg trains like every single day and several hours a day kind of holds some weight if we're talking about just purely about mat time or attendance time, right? Compared to a guy that only trains 1.5 hours every 3 times a week, for example, cumulatively over a year, that will totally that will total to probably less than 2 months of total training, or 1 month of total like full day training, versus somebody who kind of sped run through a 3 year program that trains every day for 4 hours, 5 hours, no matter, regardless of what intensity that might be. Because if in that regard, like, my training for the past 3 years has been like almost daily for 2, 3 hours. That doesn't mean I'm any better than a guy that is more skilled or more talented that trains 3 hours twice a week. So what's the basis there? The flip side is on the other side, it's the same, right? If we don't have that criteria to, in every belt you have to know X, Y, and Z, that is kind of more or less accepted as a standard for across the sport. Who are we to say that they cannot promote somebody based on just purely on subjective attendance and subjective effort? So that's all, like I'm just kind of thinking around my head, like, so what is the gauge right now? What qualifies as a black belt, right? You put the BJ Penns and the Gordons and the Joshes that can get their black belts in under 3, 4, 5 years or whatever. That's clearly at the competitive side. So how about the other folks who are not competitive? The guys who you see, let's say like a 60, 70-year-old person getting their black belt, and they obviously don't train and stuff. I started at around 40. I will never be. I would never beat the 12-year-old Rotolo brother, 10-year-old Rotolo twin, for example, right? So does that invalidate all of my training as well? So it's just a conversation that I find interesting, whether or not these instructors or black belts sold out, and whether they get paid or not to do it. I don't know. But if they did, how different is that from my previous example of taking money and promoting people who will probably never complete and never compete, and they'll never reach a stage of like even being like a threat. you know they're just going to be technical. They're just going to know how to move and stuff, but during rolls and with against more aggressive lower belts, they still get smashed and stuff like that. Does that invalidate the belt and the charging of the fee and stuff like that as well? That's all I'm asking, because I'm agnostic in all this. I could not care less about who's right or wrong. I'm just looking at it from a contrarian point of view. If we're gonna talk about like legitimacy, what are we basing it on? What is the peg? What is the criteria of when is it right to charge money? Is it amount of money? What if you just paid like $1,000? It's not a lot of money for that black belt. I don't know. So where do you draw the line? And where I understand the outrage. I understand the stance that everybody is pointing out, and I totally agree with it. I'm just putting out the other point. That's all I have. It's 8 minutes long, a little longer than I wanted. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you have any comments about it, just let me know. I'll see you next time. Bye.